Officials in Israel say a drone attack launched from Lebanon has injured nearly 40 people in the central city of Binyamina. Meanwhile, Lebanese state media said Israeli warplanes attacked southern Lebanon, striking a century-old marketplace in the southern city of Nabatiyeh and a mosque in a nearby village. The Israeli military has previously urged residents to leave the border regions as it continues to attack Hezbollah targets.
Where people gathered for more than a century to shop, transformed into a mass of rubble and flames. The Lebanese Red Cross said the fires were so intense that rescuers struggled to gain access as they searched for casualties. With daylight, the sheer scale of the damage was made clear. This coffee shop owner came to see what was left of his business, but found only ruins.
This is one of the oldest marketplaces in Nabatiyeh, in the entire city and the surrounding area. All the people depend on this market here.
The Israeli military had earlier urged residents to leave the city, but even with paramedics searching the ruins, many were determined not to go.
When they targeted Nabatiyeh marketplace, it was as if they targeted my house. We were raised there, we know everyone, and loved all the people there. This is our hometown and we will not leave.
The attack on the city just 12 kilometers from the Israeli border comes as the Israeli military intensifies and expands its operations in Lebanon. Israeli soldiers fighting in this village just a few kilometers inside the country told journalists that they were engaged in close combat with Hezbollah militants.
There was hidden terrorists here in this village, face-to-face battles. It means that my troops are seeing in their eyes terrorists and fight them in the streets.
The Israeli military has ordered dozens more villages to evacuate due to the fighting. But it's not just Lebanese civilians that have been put in harm's way. The UN says Israeli troops have fired upon peacekeepers stationed on the border several times in the last week, causing multiple injuries. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu urged the UN again to pull them out.
Your refusal to evacuate the UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages of Hezbollah.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
Netanyahu's appeal comes after dozens of countries reaffirmed their support for the UN mission despite the rising violence.
Well, for more on that story, let's go to journalist Balik Sladin in Tel Aviv. Balik, what more do we know about this drone strike in the Israeli town of Binyamina?
Yes, we're talking about 39 casualties. Most of these casualties are, most of these Israelis were lightly injured as a result of that drone attack, but at least 4 are in a critical condition with life-threatening injuries. And until now, none of the hospitals has declared any of them dead, but we might surely see that in the next hour. That's happening while Hezbollah has a minute ago confirmed or took responsibility for that attack, saying that they have launched a squadron of attack drones toward the area of Binyamina. They are claiming that they have targeted a military target there. We can confirm that, of course, from the Israeli side. And that's in response for the continuing aggression, according to Hezbollah, according to the statement that they have put in out. It's still not clear what happened exactly and why there has been no siren in that area. Some people are saying that that drone actually fired a missile, a capability that Hezbollah has showed back in May. I remember that when I was covering that front about half a year ago, where a drone toward Metula has flown over a military base and launched 2 missiles, S-5 missiles, with about 2 kilograms only of explosives. That attack also Hezbollah took responsibility for. Maybe we're talking about the same capability right now, but right now we're talking about deep inside the Israeli territory.
Now, earlier today, Netanyahu asked for UNIFIL peacekeepers to leave southern Lebanon. We heard that in the report as well. Why is that?
Well, the understanding in Israel that the peacekeeping mission is going to be a problem for the Israeli troops to operate in the area of southern Lebanon. Today, some of my colleagues went with the IDF soldiers to southern Lebanon and showed them videos circulating, of course, in the different news outlets here in Israel, about 100 meters only from the UN bases in southern Lebanon. You could see a tunnel that Hezbollah dug there close to the Israeli border, which means that for 18 years that mission failed to sabotage any of Hezbollah's attempts to of course, operate in southern Lebanon in general. And in the past year, of course, they have failed to stop the attacks, stop the rocket firing from southern Lebanon, from Lebanon in general. That's why Benjamin Netanyahu is asking the peacekeeping mission to end its mandate there in southern Lebanon. That would be, of course, the best solution from the Israeli side. But the legality of this is, of course, very complicated and probably will not be heard from the Lebanese or the UN side.
The journalist Balik Sladin there reporting from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The United States will deploy a highly sophisticated missile defense system to Israel. The aim is to ramp up Israel's defenses ahead of a potential new ballistic missile attack from Iran. The systems will be crewed by U.S. military operators. President Joe Biden ordered the deployment of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Battery, known as THAAD. Iran launched almost 200 ballistic missiles towards Israel on October 1st. Most were taken out with Israel's existing defense system, but some hit central and southern Israel. Well, for more, let's go to Washington and our special correspondent, Ibrahim. What's behind this decision?
Well, we are now in anticipation of a retaliatory attack by Israel because of that Iranian missile attack on October 1st that you just mentioned. The United States has said that deploying this battery system is part of adjusting its efforts to defend Israel and Americans in Israel, as the tensions definitely between Israel and Iran are at an all-time high, and as Israel continues the war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, the United States is a big supporter of Israel and its largest provider of arms, but what's different about this particular battery is that it's also going to come with 100 U.S. personnel that are going to be deployed to Israel. This particular battery system has been deployed in the Eastern Mediterranean and in Israel before, but again, the difference this time is that it brings U.S. personnel much, much, much closer to this, what feels like a widening conflict in the Middle East. It's a mobile system. It can be moved around and is designed to defend against medium and short-range missiles like the ones that Iran fired at Israel on the 1st of October.
Our special correspondent there, Ibrahim, thank you very much.
Let's cross now to Beirut, where journalist Karim El-Gohari is standing by for us. Karim, good to see you again. Israel launched airstrikes on the town of Nabatiyeh, which is further inland. We've just seen that in the report there. Why are we seeing these attacks now?
But what we had, in the first 3 weeks of this conflict, is specific areas the Israelis were targeting. The main area, of course, being in the very south, in the very vicinity to the Israeli border. Then in the east, the Bekaa Valley, which is considered a stronghold of Hezbollah, and the southern parts of Beirut, which is considered somehow the headquarters of Hezbollah. What we see now in the last 24 hours, or the last one or 2 days, is an expansion of this area of operation. The city or the town of Nabatiyeh is already much further inland, not directly at the Israeli border, but we had also airstrikes further north of Beirut in a predominantly Christian area, in the Shuf Mountains in a predominantly Druze area. So all that leads to the feeling here in Lebanon by most people that there's really, at this point, no place where you're really safe.
Let's talk about Benjamin Netanyahu's call to the UN to evacuate UNIFIL peacekeeping forces. Have there been reactions from Lebanon?
Well, the Lebanese government doesn't want UNIFIL to move. The Prime Minister even said that these attacks against UNIFIL are a violation against international law. UNIFIL itself is refusing to move. Now, the Israelis are saying that Hezbollah uses UNIFIL troops as some kind of human shield. By the way, something the Hezbollah is also accusing the Israelis of, that they say like the Israelis use Hezbollah as a human shield. Fact is that UNIFIL is really the only neutral witness right now to anything that's happening in the south.
Now, Karim, you were you were the last journalist with a television crew to accompany UNIFIL on a mission in Lebanon. Tell us about what you witnessed while you were working there.
Well, this was in September, already somehow a tense situation, but before the escalation. We went on patrol with a group of Irish soldiers in the middle section, UNIFIL soldiers. When we were out on patrol, there's the normal situation where the patrols are happening. While we were on patrol, the situation already became more tense, and that was level 2. That means like everyone has to go back or into the closest UNIFIL position. In our case, that was a position very close to the Israeli border, 350 meters away. And on the other side, there was a few hundred meters away, a forest where Hezbollah always is shooting towards Israel. You can see how close everything is together. But what's happening right now is that, of course, in these situations, most of the time, the UNIFIL soldiers have to stay in their shelters. And the only ones that are outside the shelters are the ones which are on the observation towers. So in the last days, Israel, in one case, even with a tank, shot rightly onto one of these observation towers. In another case, the tanks even went forcefully through the gate of the main headquarters of UNIFIL. All that, of course, in this, what UNIFIL feels like is that Israel is trying to just get rid of really more or less the only neutral witness down in the south, what is going to happen, because that is exactly the work of UNIFIL. They have to observe, document, and send then the reports to New York about what's happening in the south. And it seems like the Israeli army does not want to have a UNIFIL that is taking this role on right now.
Thanks, Karim. Journalist Karim El Gawhari reporting from Beirut.
You're welcome.